So today, Charlotte Wilkens and I would like to share a couple of insights on replication in the humanities and illustrate that by way of a case study. So first, a few comments on the debate so far. So as we all remember, there was the start of the replication crisis in the early 2010s, so around 2011, 2012, where particularly in the biomedical and social sciences, when people attempted to do the same research again and get the same results, in too many cases, so often between 50 and 85%, they got significantly different results, so insufficiently similar results. And as a result of that, there was a crisis, and people started to see that we truly need to do more replication and that there is true value to replication. Things such as aiding scientific progress because the results are more likely to be true, preventing the waste of various resources, results that are not applicable are more likely to cause harm, and potentially also if too many results turn out not to be replicable, then that may in the end erode trust in science. So there's great value to replication. And for that reason, the Dutch Royal Academy of Sciences organized an event a few years ago, and you see the report that they presented here on the screen on that occasion, and they invited me to present on replication in the humanities. And to their surprise, and somewhat to my own really, I argued that there is great value to replication in the humanities. It is possible and feasible, and of great value. But that idea led to some objections and hesitations, things like, why should we do the same thing again? Isn't it like Walter Benjamin's The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction, right? Why do it yet another time? But other people saw opportunities and chances, like becoming more rigorous, countering biases, create common ground with the sciences, increase the transparency, and the like. So that's why we delved into replication in the humanities. Now, by way of outset, a couple of definitions. So first, we take a replication study to be an independent repetition of an earlier study, answering the same study question using the same or similar methods under the same or similar circumstances. And when we say independent, we mean that the new study doesn't rely on the results of the original study. Now, there's a distinction between replicability and replication. So replication is carrying out a repetition of an earlier study. Replicability is the joint set of features that make replication possible. So being transparent about the method, for instance. A successful replication is one that leads to identical or sufficiently similar results. By humanities, here's an exemplary definition, we mean such disciplines as anthropology, history, classics, linguistics, philosophy, literary studies, the study of arts, of course, and theology. So that roughly that field. And of course, all of this is a matter of degree. So as we already indicated, replication is successful if the results are identical or sufficiently similar, but similarity, of course, comes in degrees. Now, many people distinguish between three kinds of replication, and we go along with that distinction. A reproduction is basically the reanalysis of existing data sets, whereas a direct replication is a collection of new data using the same study protocol as the original study. And finally, a conceptual replication is a collection of new data with a modified study protocol. And finally, by preliminary, when we talk about data sets, we have the empirical humanities in mind. So data sets are things like text, possibly, or statues, or paintings, things like that, and their properties. So we don't mean so much fields like epistemology or metaphysics that are largely a priori. Now, a paradigmatic replication works with independent researchers, and nowadays it's often thought that is new researchers, but also part of the original researchers. New data, an original study protocol, potentially modified, and one that explains the similarities and differences between the original study and the new study, the replication study. Now, as I already indicated, various people raised objections against the possibility or the value of replication in the humanities. Things like, well, isn't the object unique in the humanities in comparison with the sciences or the STEM sciences, things like viruses that we find time and again? Aren't the methods too varied? Isn't a typical humanities discipline not so much about truth, but more about meaning and value? Isn't it scientistic? So isn't it to impose the standards of the sciences upon the humanities to pursue replication in the humanities? Aren't humans interactive entities? So we study humans in the humanities, and don't they modify and respond to us in research? Isn't the positionality or connoisseurship of the scholar relevant, right? And doesn't that impede the replication? And finally, almost the opposite response, aren't we already doing this? Right, so what's new? What's the value? And there's a lot to be said about each of these objections, and we've addressed them elsewhere, but roughly to address two of them. Unicity, we think, is a red herring. What matters is whether one can reanalyze the original data or potentially acquire new data, and that is possible even if the object is unique. Think of the whole of space-time, the cosmos. There's only one of it, or planet Earth, or the origin of life on it. One instance, and yet you can do replication work on earlier studies on that. And the final objection, we're already doing this, is actually partially true, we believe. Yet at the same time, there's things to be gained if we pursue them as formal replication. So things like countering biases, like confirmation bias, bringing in more expertise, say 2 groups of authors, and also practical advantages like it's easier to find, you prevent the waste of resources and the like. Now, arguments for the possibility, very quickly, a priori argument, if you think about it, when it comes to the humanities, we can look at raw data, we can look at the original outcomes and everything in between and reanalyze that. We can draw in new data. So it just meets all the criteria and exemplifies all the properties of replication in the sciences disciplines. And also more of an a posteriori argument. So if you look at what they do, so things like work on the relation between Gnosticism and Augustine, that has been done time and again with new data, or the Rosetta Stone, where they try to decipher hieroglyphic using ancient Greek and Demotic languages, or different methods in studying the painting Sunset by Van Gogh, Sunset et Montmartre. So it resembles replication. And now we're actually doing formally replications in the humanities. So a science and religion replication, the work of John Brooke that you can look up, and the Rembrandt replication that Charlotte is going to talk about in a minute. Finally, there's various arguments for the value of replication in the humanities. Very much like in the science, we can increase the trustworthiness of the original findings. We have found that we gain insight into the method and the protocol, even insight among the original researchers. So they discover things about how they did things originally that they have forgotten about or neglected. We gain insight into background assumptions and paradigms, so things we take for granted or second-order ignorance. It provides and creates transparency for future studies. And we learn a lot about the nature of connoisseurship and the role of value and meaning in humanities studies. So this was a very short and quick plea for the possibility and the value of replication in humanities in general. But now I give the floor to Charlotte to do the case study.
Thank you, Rik, for giving the floor to me. Hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte Rulkens. I'm an art historian and involved in this project on replication in the humanities. So as Rik told you, the exploration of replication in the humanities led to the execution of a case study of replication in the humanities, of a Rembrandt study, actually. And this study explores the strengths and limitation of replication in the humanities by executing a replication study within the field of art history. And before I delve into this, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the actual study we took as a case study for replication. So the study involves these 2 portraits of the young Rembrandt. And the portrait at the left is part of the collection in the Mauritshuis in The Hague. And the one at the right is part of the Germanisches Nationalmuseum in Nuremberg. And before the original research started in the 1990s, the painting on the left was considered to be one of the finest examples of early Rembrandt portraiture and self-portrait indeed. The painting on the right at the time in the 1990s was in the depot of the Germanisches Nationalmuseum because it was considered to be a studio copy, so a contemporary copy not made by Rembrandt, but after the painting in the Mauritshuis. Until the Mauritshuis started to prepare for an exhibition on Rembrandt's self-portraits. And And in the technical examination of the painting, in preparation of this exhibition, to everyone's surprise, they found an underdrawing in the painting in the Mauritshuis. Underdrawings were not known to be typical of Rembrandt paintings at the time, and the style of this drawing was not considered to be Rembrandtesque. And in addition to that, an underdrawing is often an indication that one image is transferred from one medium or base to another one. So this led to an extension of this research project, and the paintings were brought together in Nuremberg. And what turned out, a group of experts looked at the painting, looked at the technical data collected, and they decided upon the reversal of the attribution of these two works. So not the painting in the Mauritshuis was considered to be autograph Rembrandt, but the painting in Nuremberg. And the painting in Mauritshuis was considered to be a studio copy. So this is one of the first instances in history of a museum, the Mauritshuis, de-attributing its own Rembrandt. And as you can imagine, this stirred a lot of attention in the press because of this groundbreaking shift of attributions. So this was very briefly where the initial research was about. So the research questions that were taken under the loop in the 1990s is the Hague version painted by Rembrandt himself or not? Is the Nuremberg painting painted by Rembrandt or not? And which of the paintings is the prime version on which the other one was based? And you call that in art historian called terms the principle. And at the time, this was examined by technical research into both versions and by a live comparisons of these versions by experts during an expert meeting. So this was the ground base that we worked with. Okay, this is the study, and this is the study we want to replicate. Before delving into the method, how we approach this replication, it's perhaps interesting to tell you that we also pre-registered this study. And this is a new thing. It's not common to do in the sciences either, to pre-register your study, but it's totally new to art history. And the idea, for those of you who you probably know it, but the idea is that you are, before you are conducting your study, you're open about the study method and approach, and you publish it. And the idea is that during the process of your study, you can give updates to this pre-registration and be transparent about adjustments in the protocol of your study. As Rik told you, there are different ways to look at replication and are the different forms of replication. And in our study, we followed the definitions as put forward by Peels and Bouter, saying that the reproduction is simply the reanalysis of the original data sets that you still have. A direct replication is a collection of new data with the initial study protocol, and a conceptual replication is a collection of new data with a modified study protocol. So here again, a summary of these three forms of replication. But for this Rembrandt replication, we decided to do both a reproduction and a conceptual replication. And we did not do a direct replication, because a direct replication in this instance would mean that we would get the old equipment out of the basement, proverbial basement of the Mauritshuis, and take new images, technical images. And we consider the chances low that these would really give new kind of data. So we found it interesting to reanalyze analyze the existing data sets back then in a first phase. And then we did a second phase with a conceptual replication, in which we again answered the same research questions, but involved the collection of new data with a modified study protocol. So here I summarize it again. The reproduction, you stay as close to original study as possible. A direct replication is the in-between version, and a conceptual replication is the version where you also adjust your protocol and involve other types of data. And you can imagine that the further you go away from this these reproductions, the idea is that you might have go into a whole independent new study, which is a gray area. So to do a reproduction, we reconstructed what happened in the original study to be able to know what we should look at again. And for the conceptual replication, we included all types of new technical methods that have evolved and improved over the years since the 1990s. And also, as part of the conceptual replication, we designed a new expert meeting. So this meeting where the paintings were brought together and experts looked at the painting during the reproduction of the original or reconstruction of the original study. It turned out that we knew very little about what actually happened in that expert meeting in the 1990s. How did these experts exchange their knowledge? How did they exactly come at the decision to de-attribute the Maurits painting, for example? And this was really a gap that we identified by designing a replication, and we thought this is a chance for us in the conceptual replication to look at new ways to do this expert meeting and possibly make it more replicable for the future. So the idea was to improve the expert meeting as a research tool as part of the conceptual replication. And we designed a new method, the attribution expert consensus meeting, which the idea was that you establish the lack or the existence of consensus about an attribution by introducing a preset threshold. In our case, when 3 out of 4 of the experts we involved would agree on the attribution. And we structuralized and formalized the meeting as well in order to see if we could mitigate biases in the attribution process, to optimize the exchange of expertise in this expert meeting, and establish a transparent decision-making process, which all in all together might enhance replicability of this expert meeting and of this decision-making process that is underlying attributions. And this all on a higher level contributes to open science and the new idea of open humanities. So as you can see, the paintings were brought together. We invited an international group of Rembrandt experts, and we took them along with our idea of designing this new approach to attributions and to expert meetings. So this process of really, trying to look at ways to replicate and looking at a Rembrandt study through the lens of replication gave us some thoughts about replication in attributions, but also broader. So in the Rembrandt case, it turned out that replicating this study for the presence nowadays could contribute to the trustworthiness and the validity of the initial findings. But it also, as I just showed you by explaining this example of the expert meeting, led to ideas how to improve methodologies used in these types of studies. But it had additional epistemic advantages as well. Because if we look into the past, this current replication study really contributed to the historiography of the original study. So we learned about what exactly took place back then. But maybe even more importantly so, this replication contributed to the future of attribution studies by enhancing replicability, making future researchers, maybe making it easier for them to really build upon the knowledge of the connoisseurs and the Rembrandt experts that went before them. It helped to guarantee the scientific integrity of the expert meeting and enhance the sustainability of research and knowledge for future experts. But what does this one case study tell us about replication as a useful type of research in humanities? And of course, this is only one case study we looked at here. And it's not only an art historical case study, but it's a very specific type of question within art history, attribution. And in addition to that, it's a very dualistic research question. Is it painted by Rembrandt or not? And in this study, we also used methods that are traditionally belonging to the sciences and the humanities, as far as you can really say that. So it's a kind of a hybrid study in that way. And of course, in humanities, you have different kinds of research, also within art history, but in humanities at large as well, with different aims, questions, and methods. And it might be that there are multiple answers accurate at the same time. But despite all these characteristics of research, we think that this trial of replication in humanities also revealed opportunities, not in the way that it should be a condition to be able to replicate a study, but it is an opportunity, and it can be a method that can be complementary to other research methods existing in art historical attributions. So we did this, of course, with a group of people with different specialisms, which you see in front of you here: methodologists, art historians, technical art historians, conservators, and philosophers joined forces to think about this issue. And we collaborated with the institutions that have the paintings in their collections, and different experts as well, to which we are very grateful. So I thank you very much, and look forward to questions and discussion.